Okay, so what you see here, well, actually, let me wait until I get the link posted in the Discord. Which I do not have open. Don't worry, you're not having problems because the screen went black there. Okay, so like I said with the last stream, I do a bit of research, a bit of work, off camera to try to get all this stuff figured out, and this is what I came up with. And so I thought in this stream, I'd just go back and I'd show you guys how I put this together. So this stream is going to be a bit shorter. I've done all the figuring off camera, and so without further ado, let's just hop right into it. I'm going to change my renderer back to Eevee. I was using cycles in Blender just to get a better result here, because this isn't really what it's going to look like inside of the engine. Cycles gives a better preview. So I'm just going to delete absolutely everything here. Go back into for some reason my grid isn't showing up. I'm not sure why. Oh, I'm not in the right view mode, silly me. Alright, so if I open up Bridge, and if I head over to local, I have this Pine Branch Atlas here, and that's what I want to use. So I'm going to just pull up that file, and I want to copy this. I'm just going to go to Shift A, add images as planes, and if you don't have that, go to Preferences, search images under add-ons, and enable import, export, import images as planes. Then you can add an image as a plane, and I'm just going to add the albedo map. I'm going to rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees. I'm going to head over to shading, and I'm going to set up a basic material here. And to do that, I'm going to paste the file path. I'm going to grab the normal map, the roughness map, the opacity map, the specular map, and the translucency map. We'll be using all of these inside of the engine as well. So for the normal map, I'm just going to set this to non-color. And I am going to... I keep trying to drag out and type in like I'm using Unreal Engine. I'm going to do Shift A to pull up this menu here, and I'm just going to type in normal map. I'm going to connect these. I'm going to take this opacity, drag it into the alpha right here. I'm going to get specular. Oh, I just accidentally put that in between some stuff, so I'm going to clean up the Blender material graph here. Translucency can go over there. Roughness will go into roughness. Specular into specular. And now Shift A, and we need an add shader. Shift A again, search, and we need a translucent shader. We'll add our principled BSDF and our translucent BSDF together, and then for the translucency color, we're going to plug in our translucency map. And that will give us our branch with the material, but now we need a tree. So let's go back to modeling. Well, part of our branch. We still need to do some editing to that, but first let's head over. It's actually Shift S, cursor to world origin, and now Shift A, curve sapling to region. And again, if you don't have that, go to Edit, Preferences, search up sapling, and add curve sapling to region. Enable that. Then just create a tree. Since we're doing a pine tree, I'm going to load the small pine preset. But I'm going to make a couple of changes here. I'm going to take this, it's either the top or the bottom one, I think the top one, and lower it down a bit. I'm going to go to branch growth. I'm going to change the down angle here. I'm going to change the curvature. It's going a little bit slow for me just because I'm streaming. Yep, I'm going to change the curvature to be something like -15. And then I'm going to it's a bit straight, so let's take this down angle, let's set it to something like 200. That's too much. Back to 100. So horizontal is probably 90 degrees, so let's try 135. 120. I'm just going to try to zero in on something that looks good. I like that. I'm going to take the curvature down to -30, and I think that is pretty good. So now we're done generating our tree. We can go to geometry, and we can save this as a preset. I'll just say pine _01, export preset. Now we can select pine 01 anytime we want to create a similar tree, and then we can change our seed. I think that's over in branch growth. Or maybe branch splitting. I'm not sure. I know there's a seed somewhere, but I don't want to spend too much time looking through menus, but you can get that same preset, get a different seed, and you'll have a different version of the same tree. So now, let's finish up with our branch. I'm hitting 7 to go into a top view mode. I'm pressing tab to edit, A to select all my vertices, and now I'm going to drag up from the corner right here to give myself another window, and I'm going to change this window to be a UV editor, and I'm just going to rotate this until the branch lines up a bit better with this line, and then I'll just scale it up. And don't worry, now you'll see there's other bits and pieces of branches around the edges. We'll deal with those. Let's do that. Now we can... I am infamously terrible at getting rid of windows I create in Blender. I create a whole bunch more every single time, instead of just getting rid of the window that I want to get rid of. So if you all give me a moment here, I'm just going to give up on the modeling tab, I think, and go over to the layout tab and not deal with that mess right now. So now I'm going to go into edit mode, Control R, and I'm going to give it 4 loop cuts. And I might add some more in, but I think 4 is a good starting point. 4. And I'll add 1 in here. And I'll add, I think that's good, having the extra loop cut right here. And you'll see why. I'm going to do K for the knife tool, and I'm just going to click and enter in some places to cut pieces of the tree mesh out. And I should have added another loop cut here. I think I will undo, add a loop cut right in here. Now go back, and I'm just adding these loop cuts in to try to preserve a good topology, but I don't want to add in too many triangles either. I don't want to make it this too hard for, I don't want to make this too hard to render. So it's about as far over that way as I can go. And maybe I undid one too many. I don't see my line there. I wasn't paying attention to that side. So I'm just trying to cut this branch out here as efficiently as I can. Now I'm just going to go into V to get my box select mode, and I'm going to shift select so I can get multiple vertices selected. And I'm just going to delete those vertices. I'm going to get my knife tool one more time, just so that I can do one more cut from here to here to here. And now I'm going to, actually at 7 again, go back into this mode, and I'm just going to give myself some more vertices to work with so that I can select all this, press the delete period key, period or delete, and the number pad to zoom in on it. And I'm just going to add some height variation to this on the Z axis, so that it's not just flat. That's looking good. Now the final step, 7 again, to go into top view, top orthographic view. I'm going to put my mouse right here, and I'm going to shift right click to put my 3D cursor right on the branch. Oh, right click closes the tab in Blender. I've been using Blender for years and I didn't know that. Thank you, 3D artist Indy. Let me see. I don't know. I'll look more into that when I figure out exactly where I need to right click later. For now, I'm going to go to Object, set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. We have our branch. And now I need to put our branch on our tree. We're going to go into, we're actually going to go to Object. We're going to convert to Mesh. I'm going to press Z and click wireframe, C to pull up my circle select, and I'm just going to drag around the edges like this. And now that won't select all the top branches, so I'm going to my regular 3D view and I'm getting more of the top branches here selected. I want to make sure I get this very top. Spot 2. And now let's go create a vertex group, name it branches, assign these vertices, and go back into our HDRI preview mode, I guess, and go over to particle properties, add a particle system, set it to hair. Let's just do 10 for the time being. That won't be enough. We're going to click advanced. We're going to enable rotation. We're going to scroll down to vertical groups, and for density, we're going to select branches. Under render, we're going to choose object, and we're going to grab our imported albedo map. You'll see that it's here and it's small. And there's some issues with the translucency. We'll fix those for now. Let's scale it up. And yeah, there's some real issues with the translucency. So I think I know how to fix it. Let's just go, oh, this is not set. No, it should be set to non-color. Let's grab our Shift A, search, math. We're going to change this to multiply. And we're going to plug in the color of translucency, and we're going to multiply it by our opacity. That did the trick. So now let's go back into our layouts mode, or modeling, or whichever mode you were in before. And now from here, we're going to go back into our particle edit now that that's fixed, and it's just easier to see when that kind of stuff is happening with the translucency. It's hard to get a good view of the silhouettes of the tree, and that's always super important. So now we have a couple branches, but it's not enough, and they're not going to be rotated correctly. So we're going to go to rotation. We're going to change the orientation axis to global Z. We're going to randomize it, change the phase, and randomize the phase. Just get some randomization going here. And now, let's change the number to something like 600. Maybe that's a bit too many. 300. I like that a bit better. Yeah, I like that. So now we have a sort of basic tree here. We don't have the trunk and branches textured. We don't have the Megascan's trunk worked in. So I think the first thing we're going to do is switch this back to Eevee, and on a real tree there would not be as many branches on the bottom couple of branches here. So let's fix that by going into weight paint mode. And it's been a while since I've done this, so let's see. Let's change the weight and paint a lower weight on some of these branches. I don't want to get rid of all of the branches down here, but I do not want to have as many branches. Another great thing to add is to add some variation, like add some dead limbs in here. You can do the exact same process, but with one of the other pine tree branch atlases from Megascans, where there's no pine needles or some dead pine needles. It's a great way to add lots of variation in and to make it look more realistic. That's a bit better, I think. It's pretty thick in here. So let's go back into particle edit and let's see here. What does 150 look like? Well, I think before I really start playing around with that, I'm going to create a material for the trunk and just make it a very dark brown so that there's not as much contrast. I'm going to up the roughness here. That's a bit unrealistic. But if you squint your eyes, it's easier to sort of see, and it's easier to see the overall shape and not to get distracted. So now we can really focus on the positioning of the leaves. So really it's just a lot of fine tuning at this point. .200 works pretty well, I think. So we'll leave it like that. We might want to change it a bit. I'm just going to save over the last pine tree blend from the last live stream. I'll probably pull that off the channel as well and replace it with this one, since I ended up starting over anyway. And now let's export this as an FBX. We'll replace our pine tree FBX. And now let's grab UE5 early access. And I'm turning off my display capture quickly here so that, any secret projects or anything like that don't get revealed. Not that there's much here, but there are a couple of things that I'm working on. So now let me find, I forgot to open this before the stream, so I'm just trying to open up my project here. Here it is. And we're back. Yes, I can show the vertex count. And that's another part where optimization really matters. My taskbar, I think, is in the way. So if I just... And again, I'm used to 2.7's 2.7x and how it used to show the vertex count down here. So let's see. If I import it to Unreal, that'll show me the vertex count. So let's just do that. We're gonna go to our old pine tree that we did last stream. That is a complete mess right now. We're just gonna re-import it since I exported this to the same file. Okay, so something happened during the export there, so let's export FBX. Ah, I didn't have this selected maybe. Let's try re-exporting that. Now let's try re-importing it. And now we have our pine tree brought in. Neonite's enabled, so let's disable that. Let's drag it in here, and it's pretty dark. That's interesting. Let's um, let's just head back over to our level here. Let's drag out our pine tree. That's already much better. So now looking at it here, I think it's already looking better than the previous one, but it's not quite there yet. And there's some UV map issues as well that we definitely need to fix. I think that's our biggest problem. So let's open up our pine tree branch material. And it's because we're using a different one than the last one. So let's organize this a bit and get our new pine branches. And get our the right pine branch textures in here. So let's grab all of these and let's take all these and move them here. Now let's import all of our textures that we're using for this tree. Let's drag them all into here. We can now replace our references. Oh, that's the wrong one. I plugged in Translucency. Here's our albedo. These aren't all showing up correctly right now in the preview. Not entirely sure why. So now let's get our opacity and plug that in. our specular and plug that in. Don't need displacement. I want to make sure we have the right specular, so now for opacity, I'm going to get a regular texture. Let's convert that. Oh, glad I caught that. Let's get rid of our regular texture. I thought it just changed it. It didn't duplicate it. So let's re-import our opacity. And now let's convert to regular texture. Change this to 4096. Okay. Now let's plug that in. Now I want to try taking translucency into opacity. Okay, maybe opacity back into opacity. And then taking translucency, and let's toss that in subsurface color. That makes it dark. So let's not worry about using translucency. Let's use base color in subsurface color. And getting some weird red on the edges here. Make sure we're feeding our red channel into roughness. Alright, well, I'm not sure what's causing that. I'm going to ignore it right now. And let's apply our changes to the material. And yeah, there's something that I've done wrong here. Because it should not be doing this weird thing with all the red here. So, let's first, I haven't worked with virtual textures a lot, so I might be misusing something. So I'm going to change all of these back into a regular texture. And I'll fix whichever errors. Pop up. Okay. Here we go. Now we have our material set up again. Let's Control L, grab the sun, and move it around so that it's shining right into the branches. And now the branches are dark. And that is not something to really see. If you look up at a tree, branches, sunlight coming through the branches, shining through the leaves, it's pretty bright. So let's try to fix that. Now, one idea here is to pull translucency and plug that into opacity. Apply that. Not much of a difference. So let's see. Let's try changing this to translucent. No. And now let's take our opacity and plug that into opacity. It's not giving me the result I want. So let's change this back into masked. We have it set to two-sided foliage, which is good. Did the review opacity mask. Oh, the material looks good here, but on the other side, we don't have light coming through. Let's see. Maybe I'm just completely missing a big step with foliage materials. Hmm. I think I see. Oh, yeah, I think I see what I need to do here. Okay, so I'm going to take our opacity map and I'm going to multiply it. by a scalar parameter well, only our opacity by a scalar parameter. And so let's promote this to a parameter. Let's name it opacity. At 0, it's not having an effect. So let's try that. Alright, I'm going to leave it like that and create a material instance for our material. I'll have to move it into the right folder too, but for now, going to drag in our instance, open it up, and up the opacity. But not all the way, so something like 0.5. It's not having the effect I want it to have. So let's see. I think if we set this to translucent, no, masked, foliage materials can definitely be tricky. Alright, let's set this back to masked. And I have to figure out how to get some translucency worked in here. Change the opacity's default value here to 0.25. Oh, I have these inputs flipped. It should be like that instead. And yes, I think that was my issue. But what if I just plug this straight into opacity? What does that do? And if I set it to 0, it's not having much of an effect, and I'm not sure why. Ah, what if we unplug opacity mask? Let's change blend mode to, translucent gets rid of specular and roughness, which isn't good. I want to see if it'll give me at least something closer to what I'm looking for. Yes, translucent is not going to work. But opaque. Can I mask out any opacity in opaque mode? It appears as if I cannot. Right now I'm hopping over into the Unreal Engine forums. And I just want to try to see what different people are using as their material settings here. Okay. So I'm gonna set this. This is set to mask. Okay. So I'm gonna plug in opacity mask again. And translucency self-shadowing. If that's gonna do anything. Maybe I'll cheat. Just a remissive color. There we go, emissive color. I didn't have that plugged in. I didn't have that plugged in. I believe that might have been my big issue. Now let's take, multiply, let's create a parameter. Let's call it emissive color. Let's save this. And now let's open up our instance. And let's change this to something like 0.25. This is working for the material, I think. And now our problem is that I don't like the amount of leaves we have. So let's head back over to Blender. Let's wait for it to respond. We did save it, so okay. Let's compare the two side by side. Oh, Blender disappeared on my other screen. So I think our best bet is to just up the number to first 300. Now let's file, export, FBX. And now let's re-import our pine tree. But really not have it selected again. Taking a while to re-import this. I'm not sure why. Here we go. I think it's a bit better. Let's just take this up to 0.5. And get the right material onto here. Drag the material on it. There we go. And maybe we can go, a bit more. But first, we have 25,000 triangles. So I don't want to go any higher than that. So let's go back into our material. Let's scroll down where I checked in a dither opacity mask. Let's uncheck that. Let's just see how much of an effect that has. A big effect, wow. That was our main issue actually. I thought it looked good, but in the end it just didn't end up working. So I think I can take my branch count back down to 200. Go back to File, Export, FBX. Again, let's re-import. Give it a minute or two. Here we go. Let's bring it over here and set it down and duplicate it. And let's add multiple trees in here. And now let's open up our instance again. Now that I moved the sun around, I'm seeing some problems. Let's turn our emissive down a bit. And let's continue to play around with things. Move the sun around. Okay. Now, for our trunk material, let's grab. What's the file path to this? It's an imported megascan, so our go megascan surfaces pine bark. That never fully imported. Let's select it anyway for now. We have some UV stretching. So, but I think the color is a bit more on point there. You can't see from this distance, but it's still definitely something we're going to fix. But I want to tweak this emissive color a bit more. Let's duplicate these. And if this was like an individual hero asset sort of tree, I think I'd spend a whole lot more time on it in Blender, really try to fine tune it. Now there's trees growing out of a rock base. That's not good. The scale, these are all too uniform. So I'm just trying to get a good idea of what these look like. When we have a lot of them together. That's at least 2 layers here, and some of these need to be bigger. Like that. And if you're looking at it on forest level, And post-process value. Let's make it infinite. Let's go to exposure. Min to 1, max to 1, compensation to 0. And now I can actually really see things here. And let's get our instance. Set it to 0. It's not good. If we set it to 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, that's better. So as a hero asset, it would definitely need more work. You'd do this with more polygons. You want to keep these relatively low poly performance. And collectively, I feel like they should all be scaled up. Maybe we need bigger ones in Blender. But again, alter your seed and speed in sapling, and that will help with that. But definitely scaled up. That already looks better. I think my biggest problem there might have been scale. The scaled up, these feel a whole lot. It just looks more realistic to me. And so I think it's too dense right here. Yeah, once there's an entire forest, things will fill up. They'll be more dense, but I think this is pretty good and will serve the purposes of our scene once we fix the branch. I'm happy with the leaf material for now. And if you guys are more interested in a deep dive into making more higher poly, more realistic trees, I'll look into it more and maybe try to make a video series on it sometime. But for now, let's hop back into Blender. Let's find our trunk. Let's get our UV editor. Select all of this, and let's just scale in the x-axis. And scale it up a bit. And I think if we export that and re-import our pine tree again, disable nanite. I always wants to enable that. Now let's open the actual mesh. Materials, pine trees, branches, nope, nope, nope. Mega scans, surfaces, pine bark, preview, our preview material here. Let's bring that in. Let's take a good close-up look. and it's a low resolution preview, so we'll want to get the right one imported. But I think this is pretty good. The only next step that we'd really need to take is, I'm not sure why it keeps showing me low resolution versions of these assets. Something weird is happening. But the only other thing I'd want to really do here is get the Megascans trunks worked in. And so do I have any of these locally? Yes, I do. So I'm going to navigate to that file. I'm going to copy. I'm going to go into Blender. And now I'm going to File, Import, FBX. I'm going to get LOD0. I'm going to import it. And I'm going to scale this tree up to match. And now the branches probably need scaled up as well. So let's go into our particle. Let's scale up our branches a bit. And now let's one view mode at a time. One direction, at a time. Move this over until we get it really, really close here. And now, let's go into face select. Let's just start selecting these. Let's delete. I meant to delete faces. Let's add a loop cut in about right here. Delete edges. Go into our vertex select mode. And we have seams. So let's, and leftover vertices. So let's delete these vertices. Now let's go into pressing O to go into this mode where I can grab one vertex and move multiples. And I'm just gonna really try to sort of bring this together here. Little seams, little areas that you will never really see, I'm okay with. So I think that is all right. Let's combine the two. Oh, okay. Let's undo that. That deleted our leaves. So now let's go to particle settings. Let's save this. Let's apply. Nope. Undo. Let's convert. Now let's grab these two. Let's actually give this one a material of its own. Let's grab these two. I want to use this one's origin. Join those. And now let's see. Yeah, that's the right one. So let's go into shading. Let's paste the path I copied. specular, roughness, normal, albedo, so we have our albedo. Now I need our normal. Sorry, my mind blanked. Not in color. And let's get a normal map. Plug these in. Let's set our specular. Well, let's plug specular in. Non-color. I'll plug our roughness in. Non-color. And now we won't be using this material inside of Unreal Engine, but I just want to try to get it close like that. And now let's up our leaf count. Except we can't, because we made this into a mesh, into meshes, so let's go through, I think, delete these leaves. That was a bit premature. But not all of them. Let's keep the original, which we are. And now let's add a particle system again. Hair, advanced, rotation, vertex groups, density, branches, object. Okay, so render as object, scale, up our scale some more. Scale randomness. Let's add a cube. Let's set it to be 1.8. Let's do 1.7, 5.5, 5.5. Now, roughly the shape of a person. Compare it to a pine needle. We have massive pine needles. So, let's turn down our scale. And now let's turn up our count, our number. Let's turn up our scale, I guess, just a little bit. Maybe back to that. Let's add some randomness. And let's go. Just preview this. It cycles, doesn't want to, that's fine. Let's export this. There's our pine tree. Back to Unreal. Let's get rid of these in the level here, because we made some big changes. And let's re-import it. Any moment now. Come on. Here we go. Let's drag it in. And we're going to need the textures for the trunk. First, let's use our instance. And that's looking pretty nice, I think. Yeah. I'm liking the way this is looking. So now our final step here, let's import. And let's get our albedo, our normal, roughness, specular. And imported in the wrong folder. That's alright, we'll go with that for now. Let's create a material in the wrong folder as well. Turn off caps lock. Open up our new material. Drag our textures in. And connect them. Save. And now let's open up our pine tree. And let's get our Megascans trunk material. And with the bark material tiled on it and the pine branch material on the bottom there, and low frames per second because of our tiling material isn't working here. I'm streaming, so I'm getting a low frame rate, but I think it looks pretty good. Optimization, you'd want to try to use less vertices. less branches. This one is sitting at 41,000, 35,000 triangles. It's a little bit high. I'm okay with that for here, for this. And it's one of the reasons why I really can't wait for Nanite to support deformation, because then it's not hard to make realistic trees. It's hard to make realistic trees that run well. If, polygon count didn't matter, each leaf I'd have modeled individually on here and it would look super real. But we're limited currently, so one day maybe we'll be able to do that. Until then, we're going to have to stick with low poly branch atlas transparent sheet texture things. So, and it's worked pretty well so far. It'll work until we can do neonite trees or something like that. But I think we ended up with something pretty good here. If I go into wireframe mode, we see our vertices. And now if we go into play, and if I work my way through, the material complexity is pretty good. I'm not seeing too many big issues. My problem is my texture streaming pull is reaching its limit. And that's due to my graphics card, so hopefully I'll be able to get a new one soon. Prices have been starting to go down on the resale market, so I'll try to grab one soon here. But I think I'm going to end out the stream here. We have our Megascans trunk. And, oh, our pine bark texture. We just need a higher resolution texture in there. Might as well. But download times, so we just have a tiled pine bark texture here, our actual Megascans trunk, and then our leaves. And I think I'm going to leave it there for this stream. I don't want to get it to go too long. I'll fix the pine bark texture in the beginning of the next video. In the next stream, when we are getting back into building out this actual environment now that we have a tree that we can use. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to end out the stream here. And I'll see you all in the next video, I guess, and in the next stream. But the next video, I will be posting that. I'll be uploading that pretty soon here after the stream. So watch out for that today. It's on the modular gameplay features plugin. So, yeah. I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to end the stream here. I'll see you all next time.